Welcome everybody, my name is Brendan Snyder. Thank you for joining me. If you're new, please help support my channel by clicking the subscribe button, and as an added bonus, of course, you'll be able to stay up to date on all the latest in the world of music. All right, we're going to take a look today at a brand new Alcatrazz album featuring former Rainbow vocalist Graham Bonnet. This just came out on Friday, July 31st of 2020. And the album itself, it's been 34 long years since we had an Alcatrazz album, so it's sort of a special affair here. Graham Bonnet goes all the way back to 1968, long before what most people know him from as having been in Rainbow, but he got his start in a band called Marbles in 1968, and then left that and started doing advertisements and jingles and things until about 10 years later when he did his first solo album in 1977, which brought him to the attention of Ritchie Blackmore at that point. But even before that, he was actually approached to front the band The Sweet, and we could have had an entire different history here if he had actually accepted that role instead of accepting Ritchie Blackmore's offer to join Rainbow in 1979. He did record one album with them, Down to Earth, also in 1979. And then later he leaves and joins MSG, the Michael Shankar group, and he records the Assault Attack album in 1982 before leaving them. He never seems to stick around very long with one band. Then along with Jimmy Waldo and Gary Shea, he forms his own group, Alcatrazz, in 1983. And they're probably best known for the different guitar players that have come through their ranks over the years. Their debut album, No Parole from Rock and Roll, which came out in 1983, featured Yngwie Malmsteen on guitar, sort of setting the tone for what their guitar sound would be like. Their follow-up album, Disturbing the Peace, in 1985, featured Steve Vai, before leaving eventually to join David Lee Roth's band. And then the third and final album, Dangerous Games, in 1986, featured Danny Johnson on guitar. Now, Graham Bonnet would go on to front a whole different host of bands at this point, again, never staying for very long. Impellitteri, 1988, Forcefield from 89 to 90, Blackthorn in 1993, and Anthem in 2000, and some other smaller ones within there, as well as continuing his solo career. So most recently, though, Graham Bonnet created the Graham Bonnet Band, and you can see both of their albums behind me there. And he also rejoined Michael Shankar in Michael Shankar Fest, which features all of the MSG singers performing together on each of their albums, which is a pretty interesting thing if you want to check out all these different guys singing together. But this brings us to Alcatrazz and Born Innocent. As I said, this album 34 years on from their last album. And so despite having reactivated the band in 2006, it took this long to actually get a new studio album from them. And Graham Bonnet, now being 72 years old, amazingly, his voice still sounds as good as ever. The guitar role on this album is being filled by the capable hands of Joe Stump, who has always been kicking around since the early 90s doing solo stuff and playing for a whole host of bands, none of which really stand out or are very famous, but very capable guitar player. But interestingly, instead of relying on Joe Stump, the album has a lot of outside guitar players joining in both writing and playing on the album. And so we've got Chris Impellitteri on one track, which he wrote and played. Steve Vai on one track, he wrote the track, but he doesn't play. Bob Kulick, who recently just passed away, unfortunately, wrote and played on two tracks. Remember, he comes from Blackthorn with Graham Bonnet. Joe Stump wrote and played on two tracks. Dario Molo wrote and played on three tracks, and he's got a band with Graham Bonnet called Izu. Came out in 2017. A Japanese guitarist, Nozumu Wakai, wrote one track on here, but he doesn't play on it. And then we've got Jeff Waters of Annihilator, who plays on one track but didn't write that track. So 7 amazing guitar players guesting on this, making it a real full metal affair here. Track number 1 is a really standout song in my opinion off here. It's also the title track to it. It's called Born Innocent. This one is written by Chris Impellitteri, and it's just a perfect guitar frenzied opener to kick off the album in my opinion. Track number 2, Polar Bears, actually written by Graham Bonnet on here, not by some famous guitar player, but it's one of the most classic melodic sounding songs on this album, and first that we get to hear Joe Stump in action on, and he does not disappoint in my opinion. Track number 3, Finn McCool, is written by the Japanese guitarist Nozomu Wakai on here, and it's another fantastic standout track with some really amazing guitar wizardry on it. Care of Joe Stump though, because Nozomu Wakai doesn't play on it, he just wrote this track. And then track 6 on here, sort of the standout track, or at least the one that's being given a lot of promotion on it, is Dirty Like the City, and this is the one that's written by Steve Vai. Apparently Steve Vai submitted something like upwards of 60 tracks for Graham Bonnet to pick from. This is the one he selected. It's a really strong sound with signature Steve Vai sound during the chorus on it and the guitar solo, but the playing on this is actually Joe Stump doing the guitar works on it. So I'm not sure how much is embellished by Joe on this or is specifically what Steve Vai wrote on it, but very unique nonetheless, and cool hearing Graham Bonnet play a Steve Vai song on here. So let's take a look at this. This is the front cover. I really like the artwork for it, incorporating, of course, Alcatrazz Island, you know, the jail cell stuff that's on that, and just really cool colors in the blue and red on here. I think it's a strong standout album cover. And I always like when on the spine they actually use the logo, the way that it's written, as opposed to just changing it to standard text. And then we got the track listing on the back, and we open it up there. And if we pop out the disc, not much on the underside except you see the completion of the island. And then the booklet in here just slides right out. I'm a little disappointed in the booklet in that there's no cover to this. It just immediately starts in like what would be hidden on the underside. And so of course we see Graham Bonnet right there. We kick into some lyrics and we see Joe Stump, and we get to the rest of the members that are in here. So all the lyrics are in here, and songwriters, and individual shot of the different guys that play on it, or the band members I should say. And the last page that's on here is the one that actually goes through and says who plays on what, and that's where I learned that there's a number of guest players on it. Usually the guys that wrote the tracks are the ones that play on it. And so good that they actually do that in it. And, you know, it's a really great comeback album, in my opinion, for Alcatrazz. We waited 34 years for this, and this album in no way disappoints. The sort of final album, Dangerous Games, that had Danny Johnson on it, in my opinion, was not sort of up to par of the first two. But this one here really comes back firing on all 6 cylinders. It's a great, return to form for, a melodic rock, 80s metal band. And if you're a fan of Rainbow, MSG, Alcatrazz, and Impalatory, Graham Bonnet, I highly recommend this album. But with just the bevy of guitar playing talent that is on this, I think it's worth it alone just for all of that, and I do recommend that you would pick this up. All right, I hope you guys enjoyed this, and if you did, please remember to comment, like, and subscribe. Let me know your thoughts, and I hope everyone has a great day. Take care.